After the death of his uncle living in Norway, American Bill, who inherited his house, decides that he is ready to change his life, takes his family and moves to a snowy town in the north. However, things turn out not quite as well as he hoped. Bill's eldest daughter, Nora, has trouble finding common language with her stepmother, and his son Lucas, having heard local legends about gnomes, decides that one of them lives in their barn. Which, of course, is complete nonsense, because in Bill's barn lives not one gnome, but a whole army. And they don't like noisy strangers and prefer to shut them up radically, once and for all. Every year at Christmas, the Western world tries to create a New Year's spooky tale. One that is both creepy and funny, that is about family and how it grows stronger in the face of a common threat, and that there are snow-white snowdrifts, fur mittens and colorful garlands all around. And also it should be scary, but without much bloodshed, so you could watch it with children. In general, something like Gremlins, but not 40 years ago, but here and now. So far, the closest to the goal is the horror film Krampus by writer and director Michael Dougherty, but even this quite successful movie is far from being perfect. Norwegian-Finnish comedy horror There's Something in the Barn was obviously created with the aim of conquering the international market. The entire cast speaks English, the center of events is a family of Americans, and comedy situations are based almost solely on stereotypes about both harsh and badass Scandinavians, which are just as far from the real thing, as, for example, in a purely parodic Eurovision with Will Ferrell. As they say, any whim for your money, as long as you watch it. Norwegian Film Fund even gave the creators of the movie grant of 3 million Norwegian krones, and it must be said that the authors worked them off in full, because Norway here looks very picturesque. But one thing is to develop tourism, and another is to shoot a fascinating comedy horror film, which will please for many years and will be included in the mandatory entertainment New Year's program of every family. But there are questions to this movie in this capacity. And, first of all, they relate to the rules that the authors came up with. As in the case of Gremlins, barn gnomes are not malicious and even useful, but they must be fed deliciously and cannot be annoyed by noise, bright lights, and disorder in their territory. Of course, all these rules are immediately broken by the arriving Americans, which causes a rate of retaliation from the gnomes, who not only immediately change their opinion about noise, bright lights, and mess, but also organize a riotous drinking party, obviously inspired by the partying from the Gremlins. It is clear that this is a trifle, but these are your own rules, you can't ignore them. And this is far from the only question to the logic of the film. For example, how come the Norwegians themselves have never encountered barn gnomes in their neighborhoods before the arrival of the American family? However, the worst part is not that these questions are there, but that they arise right as you watch the movie, meaning that the authors failed to enthrall enough to make all of these things fade somewhere far into the background. And although the movie has jokes of varying degrees of cynicism, and in general it is colorful, jaunty and atmospheric, There's Something in the Barn is still not perceived as a movie for years to come. Everything here is too fake and superficial. It's nothing more than New Year's tinsel, which, of course, creates a festive mood, but it's not something unique, and therefore its value is pretty questionable.